Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today, we'll look at another horrific instance with you. Today, we travel to Cortland, a place of contrasts, where the dismal realities of gang violence and the clandestine commerce of prohibited narcotics are balanced by the upright native residents. Despite its tiny size, Cortland and the surrounding Panola County, with a population of 34,000, have their fair share of criminal activities and violent gangs. Regular shootouts and arrests of persons engaged in illegal trading are regular. This bad environment was essential in our journey. On December 6, 2014, at 2009, emergency services were notified of a vehicle fire on a rural road. The first firefighters to arrive on the site discovered a flaming Kia Rio and quickly began extinguishing the fire. Inside the automobile, a terrible spectacle unfolded, with black smoke rising rapidly skyward. As the rescuers sprayed foam on the truck, they watched a shadowy figure slowly emerge from the neighboring underbrush. The silhouette resembled either a young woman or a toddler. The victim was terribly burned and resembled a live corpse. As the person neared, the firefighters noticed it was a young woman wearing only her pants and covered in burns from head to toe. She approached them and pleaded for assistance. The sad woman was totally burned. Her garments had been burned, her skin was melting and slowly flowing down, and her entire body was bleeding. Her hair had become a scorched lump of ash. Her face was blackened with soot. A rescuer put a blanket around her scorched body and placed her on the ground. The firefighters remained by her side while they waited for the emergency medical care personnel. The young woman, hardly moving her lips, attempted to enunciate individual words that were inaudible to others nearby. Despite her state, she could not talk clearly, but numerous emergency responders were able to hear the names Eric or Derek when asked who had attacked her. She was evacuated from a tiny rural community to a hospital in Memphis. However, after suffering 93 burns to her body, the young woman died 4 hours later. Jessica Lane Chambers, 19, a local resident, was the victim. Jessica grew up in Cortland, living with her mother across the street from her grandmother and her father and stepmother further down the street. She was a small and frail young woman with a steely character. She grew up in a chaotic family, as did many of her friends, relatives, and neighbors. Her father pleaded guilty to producing methamphetamine and was arrested for driving while intoxicated in the early 2000s. In 2006, her 28-year-old neighbor was shot many times in the yard. Jessica did not grow up in a positive environment, so she did not become a quiet choir girl. She smoked, argued with her parents, had unstable relationships with boyfriends who had legal issues, and, as her family was aware, occasionally responded aggressively during disagreements. Jessica's behavior worsened age 17, following the death of her older brother Alan in a vehicle accident in 2012. Her mother disapproved of Jessica's new boyfriend, so she moved out for several months. Her childhood was tough. Her father served time in prison, but by 2014, he had been freed and was working as a mechanic for the local sheriff's department. Jessica was not afraid about breaking the law. She occasionally sold illegal narcotics and was involved with local gangs. Nonetheless, the sweet and cheerful Jessica was respected and liked by practically everyone she knew, making her sudden death all the more puzzling. Rumors of a burnt car and an intentional fire-setting incident swiftly spread around her small community. Jessica's father's position in the sheriff's department allowed him to quickly learn about the neighboring car fire and the event involving his daughter. When his wife heard the news, she raced down the street to inform Jessica's mother of the awful situation. They got to the hospital when Jessica was still alive. The tragic demise of the young woman drew the nation's attention. Hundreds of people attended Jessica's funeral on December 13th, which was organized to honor a happy adolescent, a former student, a cheerleader, and a girl who aspired to be something more than her circumstances. A lengthy inquiry into this high-profile case ensued, sparking public interest. The FBI, ATF, and the United States. Marshals were brought in to help in the local probe. The initial assumption suggested that the fire was caused by an automobile accident. However, this was immediately ruled out because no evidence of emergency braking or other barriers was discovered at the scene. A thorough investigation of the burnt vehicle revealed no traces of impact or body damage. Thus, the theory was not substantiated. The dominant theory then changed to arson. However, at the time of the occurrence, the police had few leads, and a lack of evidence slowed the investigation. Investigators questioned almost everyone who had touched with Jessica during her final days. They also investigated the possibility that her boyfriend, who was in prison at the time of the arson, had ordered her death. However, this notion was discounted because he had been residing in Iowa since their split. Ali Alsani, the owner of a petrol station, was also under scrutiny. He was among the last persons to see Jessica alive. Ali made his statement and was released. There was speculation that Jessica had caused difficulty for herself by engaging with one of the local gangs. However, the gang members denied any participation and offered their sympathies to the Chambers family. Many of those called in for interrogation had legitimate reasons to lie, even if they didn't know who killed her. The investigation appeared to be at a halt. There was no suspect or motivation for such a horrific act. The public's need for justice slowed down the investigation and constantly provided erroneous leads about Jessica's life. Here are a few of the most popular theories on social media. Locals, for example, accused Brian Rudd, Jessica's high school ex-boyfriend, of acting jealously in the heat of the moment. Others speculated that Jessica sold someone incorrect drugs for many $100s, which may have enraged a dealer. "This is the most puzzling case I've ever worked on," said District Attorney John Champion, who has been with the county for 22 years. He has been working on Jessica's case since December, collaborating with local investigators, the MBI, FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and the United States Marshal Service. According to Champion, they questioned and re-interviewed approximately 130 persons, including multiple Eric and Derricks. Despite this, officials have yet to arrest any suspects. After some time, investigators were able to reconstruct the final week of Jessica's life, minute by minute, leading up to her terrible death. After getting a phone call on December 5, 2014, Jessica drove to the EMM Mini Mart. After receiving a call from a friend, she bought $14 worth of petrol and left in her car at 5:15 p.m. She called her mother about 5:45 p.m. and said she'd be back soon. Her hair was twisted back into a bun, and she was dressed in camouflage pajama trousers. She then made a few more stops, one at an unknown house and another in the next town, before arriving at the scene of her sad death, possibly already accompanied in her car by the person who would take her life. Surveillance cameras also caught a man with a striped shirt refueling a petrochem before driving in the same direction as Jessica. However, there was no confirmed information concerning the man's subsequent movements. Cell phone data showed that she spent about 10-15 minutes near a traffic light on Highway No. 6, traveling towards Batesville. The succeeding 62 minutes between 6:30 and 7:32 p.m., often known as the mystery hour, took some time to unravel. Jessica's phone indicated that she arrived on Heron Road at 7:30 p.m., where her burning car was later discovered. So, where did Jessica Chambers go and what caused her horrific death? The investigation progressed quite slowly. In December 2015, 17 suspected gang members were detained in a separate case involving charges of illegal possession of weapons, restricted narcotics, and counterfeits. District Attorney John Champion did not expect any of the gang members to be directly involved in the fire event. It turns out that during the plea discussions, all gang members were given the opportunity to aid the investigation. Thus, the gang members pointed to one Quentin Tellez. Then, about an hour before the fire, investigators discovered who Jessica was. However, in February 2016, authorities announced a pause in the case to undertake a more thorough investigation and determine a motive. The lack of official suspects fueled the spread of false rumors, which spread over the internet and subsequently across the community. This scenario drew in online detectives. A Facebook campaign named Justice for Jessica was set up, with a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and widespread search for her perpetrator. Rumors arose online that Jessica, who had previously dated African-American males, had been targeted by white nationalists due to her involvement in interracial relationships. Online conspiracy theorists, on the other hand, claimed that the perpetrators were African Americans because Jessica was a member of a gang and was killed in reprisal for attempting to leave it. However, none of these theories were officially confirmed. The inquiry grew particularly interested in the character of Quentin Tellez. After examining social media and Jessica's cell phone, investigators discovered who the young cheerleader had been conversing with in her final hours. During the first interrogation, 29-year-old Quentin Tellez stated that the encounter, which had been organized by text message, was the only time they had met and he didn't know her well, only asking for a ride home. Tellez was arrested on allegations of murdering Jessica Chambers through arson after providing more detailed information and showing all of the messages. Tellez's text conversations suggest that he routinely sent Jessica explicit demands. On the day of the disaster, Jessica texted Quentin at 9:02 a.m. to say she'd just woken up, and he responded a few minutes later that he had too. Tellez texted Chambers at 10:09 a.m., "I'm ready," shortly after stopping at the MEM patrol station. She was shown on surveillance tape exiting the MEM a few minutes later, possibly to pick up Tellez. Then they picked up one of Jessica's friends. Jessica dropped Quentin off around 10:49 a.m. Later, about 2:3 a.m., Tellez messaged Jessica again, this time clearly begging for some love. This was his fourth message in 4 days requesting closeness via text. Other deleted texts were retrieved, including messages like "I'm excited and come lie with me," which Jessica did not respond to. The passenger seat in Jessica Chambers' torched automobile was moved back, which is normal for intimate interactions in a car. Prosecutors claimed that this was evidence that the two were having, or attempting to have, intimacy that sad evening. On February 24th, Tellez was charged with Jessica's murder and arson. The investigation took a long time to build the case. The first trial in Jessica Chambers' case began in 2017 in Batesville, Mississippi, roughly 50 miles south of Memphis. The trial was well publicized, with stringent security measures in place. Jurors were secluded, and spectators were inspected by metal detectors before entering the courtroom. Prosecutor John Champion informed the jurors that they would view terrible photographs of the burned Jessica Chambers and hear testimony from approximately 35 witnesses. Investigators believe Jessica encountered Quentin Tellez around Thanksgiving in November 2014. He was 7 years her senior and had gone to the same high school before she enrolled. In October of the same year, he was freed from prison after serving time for burglary. Dustin Blount, an FBI agent, testified during the first trial. He met Jessica through a buddy at a petrol station in Cortland, Mississippi. They spent a lot of time driving around together on several occasions. He went so far as to claim that they had been intimate. He indicated that they had been in the passenger seat, going on to say that the passenger seat had been reclined back and that he was sitting in it with Jessica Chambers sitting on him. In court, John Champion claimed that they exchanged a number of text messages, including on the day of her death, in which he wanted intimacy. The front seat in the burnt car was down, as Tellez had mentioned during their earlier encounter. Champion alleged that Tellez strangled her and then doused her with petrol and set her on fire, believing she had died. A friend of Jessica who testified stated that the three of them had ridden in Jessica's car the day before the incident. Later, Tellez told investigators that he met Jessica that night and they went to a fast food restaurant together. Several individuals he claimed to have been with when the fire erupted were unable to validate his alibi. He then showed on a store surveillance video several miles away, buying a phone card for a pal in Louisiana. Tellez did not testify in his own defense during the trial. Several emergency responders at the scene of the incident reported hearing Jessica say the names Eric or Derek, which was a key part of the defense. Finally, 2 jurors objected to the fact that Quentin Tellez's name did not sound like Eric or Derek. Canola County District Attorney John Champion cited text messages in which Tellez constantly demanded intimacy with Chambers. You'll see text chats between them in which Quentin repeatedly asked Jessica for intimacy, and she continually denies him. Champion testified at the first trial. and it was established that he sent her a series of text messages, including one on the day she died, asking intimacy. Also, FBI agent Dustin Blount revealed that after questioning, Tellez admitted to removing Jessica's contact information and all of their text messages from his phone shortly after her death. When asked why, Quentin calmly replied, "I wasn't scared, but once we found out who it was, who had passed there, I just deleted my contact with her because I didn't want to have a deceased person in my phone, a number in my phone that would never be used again." At the first trial, FBI agent Dustin Blount proved that Tellez and Chambers met through a buddy at a petrol station in Cortland, their small hometown. "They drove around together a lot," said Agent Blount, who remembers questioning Tellez. He even went so far as to imply that they had been intimate at some point. Agent Blount, who met with Tellez at his house 11 days after Jessica's death, urged Tellez to explain the personal experience and indicate where it happened. Tellez pointed to a driveway south of the house he lived with his mother. In December 2014, he and his mother lived in a caravan up the road from the convenience shop where Jessica Chambers was last seen before the fire. His DNA was detected on the woman's keys, and his cell phone record showed he was at that area on the night in question. However, Quentin Tellez maintained his innocence. In her opening remarks, defense counsel Darla Palmer urged the jury to dismiss the mobile phone location evidence, arguing that it could not prove that Tellez and Chambers were in the same spot. Quentin has always maintained his innocence, assuring authorities in the interview room that, despite being threatened with capital sentence if the case went to trial, he had revealed the truth. "I didn't end Jessica's life. I don't have the heart to end anyone's life." His family argues that the police are simply looking for someone to blame in a case that has become a hotly debated racial issue since Tellez, an African-American, was arrested for the killing of the attractive white cheerleader. Investigators looked at possible connections to other recent fires in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama. Jessica was a white woman who dated African-American males, and she was not the first white woman to face criticism for her interracial relationships, but no linkages were identified. "I can't tell you how many different theories we've discussed," Champion said. Typically, law enforcement can rapidly identify suspects in homicides by interviewing witnesses and using street informants, but no matter how much we cooperate with people, listen to testimony, take DNA swabs, and conduct polygraph tests, we haven't gotten any closer to making an arrest. The first trial in 2017 ended in a mistrial due to uncertainty about the jury instructions. They declared that a guilty conviction must be unanimous, but did not specify the same for a not guilty verdict. Officials stated that the jurors apparently believed that because they could not all agree on Tellez's guilt, this implied his innocence. By the time of the retrial in 2018, Quentin Tellez was being investigated in Louisiana for the death of student Ming Chen Xiao and the unauthorized use of a stolen bank card. In May 2019, he was charged with second-degree murder in connection to Xiao's death. The second trial was very tough. Jurors were given a photo of Jessica Chambers, that firefighter Cole had shot upon arriving at the scene. Cole told jurors that the sight of Chambers, her lips blackened with soot, haunted her, and that she sees the photo she took every morning and night. A senior firefighter reported that he had never seen a victim with such severe burns when he discovered the young woman lying on the ground, scarcely able to talk, after being deliberately set on fire. She sat on a blanket. Her hair was singed. There was soot around her nose and lips, and blisters covered her entire body. Cole, the Panola County Director of Emergency Operations, told the jurors that he sat and held her hand. "That was all I could do," said firefighter Cole Haley, fighting back tears. "I told her, sweetheart, everything will be fine, and she replied, I am going to die." Haley stated, "I lay down beside her at that moment." Paramedic Bradley Dixon said that her skin hung off her lips and nostrils. Her eyelashes and brows were gone. Her hair was in a warm, matted mass. At the second hearing, a woman named Sherry Flowers testified that she had not been in Tellez's first trial, but had picked up a hitchhiker on the night Jessica Chambers was tragically killed. Sherry Flowers did not recognize Tellez in court and admitted to the prosecutor that she did not know who she had picked up. She did, however, tell the court that when a man flagged her down, she stopped because she mistook him for her cousin. She consented to give the man a ride, describing him as an African-American gentleman, around 20 years old with a slender to medium physique. Telis, who stood 5 feet, 9 inches tall, was 26 at the time. Flowers initially did not contact investigators, and when asked why in court, she replied, "I couldn't remember and thought it wasn't relevant to the case." Nonetheless, prosecutors attempted to link this ride to Jessica Chambers' death, claiming it allowed Quentin Telis to leave Jessica's car and return to light it on fire. However, the defense challenged the timing, and Flowers conceded that she was unaware of the exact time of the ride, simply saying, "I know I picked someone up." The investigator also revealed that Jessica Chambers' keys were discovered in a ditch 2 days after her death, close to where the hitchhiker was picked up. The defense objected to the keys being admitted into evidence, claiming it was difficult to verify where the keys were at the time. During the retrial, jurors were required to visit the crime scenes and hear more testimony. The second trial was very dramatic. Witnesses fell down on the stand, and onlookers wept when photographs of Jessica Chambers' charred abdomen and face were exhibited. As he came down from the witness stand, one of the first responders who was crying embraced the girl's father. In 2018, the second jury failed to reach a judgment in the trial, becoming the second jury in 2 years to be deadlocked on whether Quentin Telis was responsible for lighting Jessica and her car on fire. Despite the suspect being tried twice, no conviction was obtained, and the case remains officially unsolved. Nonetheless, online sleuths continue to scan social media for any clues that detectives may have overlooked, formulating their own, often bizarre hypotheses about who killed Jessica Chambers. Jessica Chambers' death sparked widespread media coverage. As media interest subsided, the tale drew the attention of online detectives throughout the world. What happened between Jessica Chambers' departure from home and her sad death is still one of the most debated aspects of the case. According to sources, Jessica left her residence at 5 p.m. on the night of the crime, informing her mother she was heading to a nearby petrol station. Chambers is seen twice on surveillance footage from the petrol station. Jessica is seen fueling up, then heading towards the business and waving to someone off camera before approaching them. Observers continue to speculate about who young Jessica was waving at that day. Amateur detectives have attempted to crack the case on their own, formulating their own ideas, sometimes following patently false information, and occasionally harassing Jessica Chambers' family and friends. These individuals, ranging from conservative bloggers to gluten-free bakers from Montreal, boating lovers from Florida, and grocery coupon collectors from North Carolina, all claim to want justice for Jessica above all else. Instead, they have terrorized her once peaceful community with their constant requests for answers to their dubious claims. In the process, they propagate rumors that permeate actual life, inciting racial tensions, rekindling old grudges, and reigniting feuds. Jessica's death is more of a pleasure for these amateur investigators than a tragedy. For her mother, missing white woman syndrome is a term used by media critics to characterize the national fixation with victims who are young, blonde, and white, and Jessica meets all of these qualities. Jessica was a former cheerleader with flaxen hair and weighed only 90 pounds, but those intrigued with her tragedy are especially focused on her little village. Outsiders can readily find Jessica's family members, friends, ex-boyfriends, and sworn enemies' social media accounts, as well as phone numbers, all of whom have reported being called by strangers who want to question them about whether they killed the adolescent. The police say they still don't know who killed her or why, leaving the mystery to amateur sleuths who may cause more harm than good. When does a personal sorrow turn into a public spectacle? Jessica's older stepsister manages the Justice for Jessica memorial page on Facebook, and it remains popular. It has brought together many sympathetic people from all around the world who first heard about the young woman who was burned alive. People write messages of condolence, provide words of encouragement to Jessica's family and friends, and donate books and presents in her honor. Jessica's room is decorated with a memorial quilt composed of bright pink patches with zebra stripes, as well as her photo and birth and death dates. The words secret group were sewn on the upper left square. No one knows what this word means because the quilt, like other gifts, came from all across the world. Unfortunately, Jessica's death made little difference in Cortland. Everyone knows each other here, and both police and residents believe the attack was personal. Quentin Tellis, 29, who is serving time for a different crime, is not free, but Jessica's justice has yet to be served. Unfortunately, Jessica's mother, Lisa, died on October 29, 2021, at the age of 52, without seeing justice done for her daughter. It is unclear whether there will be a third trial in the case of the young woman burned alive. Thank you for viewing, people. Please subscribe to my channel. There are many frightening stories ahead of you.